Hey, I'm Jenny.
I'm Tanarra. How you doing? We're from Rebel 75. We are inviting you into our brains and our conversations around workplace culture, teams, and power dynamics sometimes, and other stuff.
You might hear things about movies, culture, Formula One, football, and my Tuesday night D&D sessions.
And you'll definitely hear stuff about raising my kiddo. So,
Yeah.
welcome to Rebel Talks. Hope you enjoy yourself. So, Jay, we've been trying to get ready for the business show in Miami
Yeah.
at the end of April.
Yeah.
And as we were looking at the client portfolio that we have for Rebel 2, our clients run the gamut from super tiny
Too
to
tight.
Fortune 500, 25,000 people, right? With like
Right.
pretty big stretch. But there are some really unique challenges, I think, for, as a small business owner, we talk about this stuff all the time, but
Mm-hmm.
for small and medium business owners and founders, um, and one of the ones that, like, the pattern that keeps coming up for me is like that moment of scale,
Mm.
right? Like
Yeah.
when when a founder, 'cause one of the things, I language, one of the things I'm super concerned about with Rebel, and we've talked about this, is I never wanted Rebel to get so big that my talent, knowledge, vision became a hindrance, right? That it becomes the ceiling for what
Mm-hmm.
Rebel's capable of. I also don't want it to grow so far that it doesn't keep the sort of integrity that it has. But I would imagine for a lot of founders who do want to scale, that's a really big moment. That moment where you become the bottleneck
Yeah.
for what you've built.
I
And I'm
wonder
just,
if, I wonder if, I truly wonder if founders actually pause to think that out loud.
mm,
Right? Or if it isn't just, it's just so hard to not get caught up in the excitement. Like you land a big contract, you land a big opportunity, and okay, I'm giving some psych talk here. Your ego gets in the way because it's like, oh my gosh, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. It's kind of
mm,
like when you're renovating a house and you think like, well, if we just tore this little wall down and we put some like plaster here, and it becomes this thing that, 6 months later, when you're buried in it,
yeah,
you don't actually stop and think about that moment
yeah.
in which it changed. And I wonder, I'm a relatively recent addition as a small business owner. I wonder about that. Like, what happens? Do you immediately go to the how? Like we talk a lot about
Mm,
alignment in teams,
yeah.
about being aligned in the why and the what. And so often teams get like they go right to the how. And I wonder if that
Mm,
also happens with small business owners, is that you're presented with this opportunity that is beyond your, maybe not beyond your imagination, but
yeah.
beyond what you thought was possible, maybe a couple of months before.
Yep.
And instead of saying, does this align to what we're trying to do or what I'm trying to do? Does it actually take me in a direction that's different than where I wanted to go with the company? you, you
Yeah.
just you just turn into like, okay, what are the dates and when am I available and how am I going to do this and who do I need? And you start executing, because
Yeah.
ultimately that's kind of why you're in business for yourself, is because you can get things done. Why would you not do this? Right.
Yeah. I think there's certainly that control mechanism. Like
Yep.
I'll name it, at least for myself, right? There's the control mechanism of I can do all these things and I can get all this stuff done and I've got the talent, the drive. But there's also a point where I think if you're going to scale, you've got to be able to build systems that scale.
Okay.
If you really want it to be able to scale beyond you as a founder or, a leader in a business that was small that is now expanded,
Yeah.
right? And one of those systems is culture, like that cultural system, because culture is a system. It is a living, breathing thing, right? It's a
Yeah.
thing that, frankly, you know, it really is about what you do every day. Like we talk about the
Yeah.
fact that it's what you permit, what you practice, what you promote, right? What you protect. Um, and one of the things that even at this stage I'm trying to let go of is all of the decisions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I have to, as a leader, as a founder, be really clear about what I care about, what I don't care about,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not frankly stifling you. I'm not stifling any of our partners that we work with. Be like, I don't care about that. Like, go, that doesn't matter to me. Go make that decision. These are the three
Yeah.
things I care about. And I wonder sometimes, as businesses grow, have founders really thought about, like, what do I care about so much that I'm willing to be a bottleneck versus what can I
Yeah.
let go of and let it grow organically in the hands of people that I trust? What are those systems of trust and accountability and autonomy
Mm-hmm.
that we are either not creating or are deliberately designing early in, that makes the difference between whether our organization scales in a way that feels breathable and accountable as opposed to stifling and almost debilitating, right?
Yeah.
Like that's I think the thing I'm wrestling with when I think about healthy culture in a small organization, because it's so all hands on deck
Mm-hmm.
so much of the time, but then decisions still have to get made. And so it's all
Mm-hmm.
hands on deck, but the only mind that's on deck to make decisions is the founder or a very small cadre of people. That's not scalable.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You're right. Um, I wonder, you know, I wonder a little bit, and this might be going a little bit off topic, but I wonder about what attracts people who want to work with small business
Mm-hmm.
owners, founders. And as an individual, I'm attracted to that energy and that excitement,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I want to come work with a person who's got ideas.
Yep.
But what I think sometimes happens is there's this moment of, oh my gosh, that person is so smart and they've got all the ideas that I'm going to let them make all the decisions because clearly they're in the
Yeah.
driver's seat for a reason. And
Yeah.
I think that maybe happens more than we think, is that people cede decisions to that founder
Mm-hmm.
because of the energy that the founder has brought in. And I
Yeah.
wonder, what do you do about that as a founder? How do you empower your team to recognize, your team or your two or three people, to recognize that you are a person, you have limited, scalability yourself,
Yeah.
but that also, they have to take the step of seeing you as more than just that thing that they were
Yeah.
so excited about.
Yeah. You just connected something for me in that. So there's this concept in organizational relationship systems coaching.
Mm-hmm.
There's this principle that all roles belong to the system. And
Okay.
so let me see if I can articulate this in a way
Yeah.
that is really simple. When I started Revel last year, I was a complete system. I held all the roles, right? So I was
Mm-hmm.
CFO, CEO, chief marketing officer, chief strategist, chief client officer. I was all of those things. It was all of those roles. When you joined, I was like, these are roles I cannot hold. I need
Mm-hmm.
somebody to come in and like organize my shit, tell me what I'm doing wrong, especially in these areas. This is the stuff I care about and I'm going to keep for right now. This is where there's like really great place for you to also like define how you want your role to show
Mm-hmm.
up in the system. I would imagine if we then brought on, and we've hired in roles, right? So we now
Yeah.
have a fractional CFO and a
Mm-hmm.
bookkeeper. We have other coaches and consultants that we work with who are picking up some of these additional roles.
Yep.
But those roles collectively belong to the system, which means if I am trying to fulfill more roles than I can handle, somebody else has to pick that up. The ball
Mm-hmm.
gets dropped. Does it ever get picked up? So if like as a founder, I have to recognize, I actually have to do the work to recognize my role shifts every time there's a change in the company. So what is my
Mm-hmm.
role and how am I clarifying it? Right? Am I really thinking
Mm-hmm.
about like what does the system now need, right? Rebel needs some
Right.
different stuff. We're going to need more marketing power soon than the two of us because it's a shared role right now. We're
Right.
sharing the role of marketing, right?
Oh
This
yeah.
is not uncommon in startups,
Yeah.
right? I interviewed for a startup 15 years ago. My role would have been like head of product design, and they were like, and marketing. I was like,
Marketing.
whoa. It's like,
Yeah.
time out.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Too many
Really
roles.
common.
Too many roles.
Yeah.
I can't design your product and market your product. It's a
Right.
conflict of interest. But that's not uncommon. All hands
Right.
on deck, right? But as you have more hands, how are you clarifying how those roles that belong to the system show up? And that includes
Mm-hmm.
things like where decision making lives. It includes what I still care about as the founder, but somebody else is going to care about some stuff in marketing and that needs to be addressed, right? All those things, right?
Yeah.
Sort of sit in that system. And so I'm just thinking about the fact that if we acknowledged those things
Mm-hmm.
along the way, right? And as founders, we complain about the stress and the number of roles
Yeah.
we carry, right?
Yeah.
Like there's all these jokes, take off this hat, put on this hat. But as you start taking off hats and giving them to other people, you then have to adjourn that. You have to
Yeah.
grieve that and give it away
Mm-hmm.
as a founder or a small business owner or a leader. Like, are we adjourning these things in a way that is actually like, is named and is ceremonious so that we're acknowledging I no longer carry that. You now carry that. I'm going to respect that. And that means the decisions that come with that belong to you too. And I
Mm-hmm.
trust you, right? It's like it's signaling these things, right? Those we talk about signals all the time. It's like sending that signal out, not just to yourself, to the other person, to the broader organization. I don't want that decision to come back to me. That now belongs to Jenny. Like
Yeah.
don't bring that over here.
So are you saying that, as a practice, especially with a really small organization, that anytime you bring a new energy into the system, right, the system has to rebalance itself,
Mm-hmm.
or or those people taking care of the system have to balance it better.
Yeah.
Okay, there was a
Yep.
there was something that you and I did really early on that
Mm.
was so helpful, and it has guided a lot of the way that I feel and think about my own responsibility. Um, we did an exercise about the things that we each do really well
Mm-hmm.
and the things we hate.
I
And for
remember
the
that.
things that we hate, the things that we had in common that we hate,
Yep.
we recognized that we had to shoulder them together until somebody else could take them on. Because we
Yes.
both hate doing marketing, but we actually,
Yeah.
it's not that we hate doing marketing. It's hard to do marketing because it's a presence and an energy
Yes.
that, you know, I would rather devote to something that I do better. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a pretty typical thing. But that
Yeah.
exercise of like, okay, we're going to bring me in. Let's talk about those things that we do really well, and and things that we don't like to do,
Yep.
because at least then we're honest with each other about those things.
Yeah.
And in that same exercise, here's a reveal to everybody. We've known each other a really long time. There were things that you said that I do well that I don't actually think I do well. And the opposite also happened.
Yep.
Things that you didn't call out that I think you do really well.
Yeah.
And that's an important moment also,
Yeah.
where, it doesn't mean I want you to do the thing that you don't see yourself doing really well, but I know you do that thing really well.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be either supportive of you doing it because I don't do it well, or
Yeah.
I'm going to acknowledge that you might struggle in that area because you don't think that you do that particularly well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it
Yeah.
becomes like, how do I know how you work? And
Yes.
how do we find ways to balance each other in a way that's really healthy and
Mm.
open and honest? And when something doesn't work, we're like, hey, okay, this isn't working. Let's find a way through it. But it usually
Yeah.
is about, it's almost always, let me take that back. It is always about the system. It's
Yes.
not about like, I don't like what you're wearing today, or I
Right.
don't like what you, it is never that. It's always about, is this working for the system?
Yeah.
And that removes a lot of the emotion from that conversation, even if you have to have it with yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
That's important.
It is. It is. That self-awareness is super important, but it also
Yeah.
really helps to have a mirror,
Yeah.
right? So, as I think early on, I had other people that could reflect that back to me where I could say, okay, keep me honest. You've worked with me in
Yeah.
this setting, or you know me in this way. If I told you I was doing this, how would you react? And I've had people be
Yeah.
like, oh my God, put it down right now. Walk away.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But I do think it's about the care of the system.
Yeah.
And I'll tie it back to something you said early on, which is I do think one of the hardest things for us to do in a small business space or as a founder is to check our own egos, right? To put that ego down and to recognize that unless the brand that we founded is literally your identity,
Yeah.
your identity is not being challenged by people saying, let me take that, or I can help with that, or by you actually giving over roles
Mm-hmm.
to other people. But your identity has to evolve with the organization so that your role evolves with the organization. Because if you stay
Mm-hmm.
stuck in your ego and your identity and it's all tied to your original vision, scale is going to feel like a straitjacket to everybody around you.
Yeah.
Right? It's just going to get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And then it rips at the seams. And
Mm-hmm.
that is problematic because that's when you start to lose people that you want to keep. That's when your culture starts to really eat your company. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I think the other one that comes to mind in this sort of space is small business, like small teams. Small teams run on almost inherent trust, right? When they're sort of built, they run kind of on this inherent trust framework. And a lot of times it's unspoken
Mm-hmm.
because you've brought people in at in such an intimate way. You know them, you know what they're capable of. They've been in the room sometimes since day one, which means they feel, I think in many cases, a sense that they can express
Yeah.
themselves about anything.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful when teams can run on trust, but that relational capital only gets you so far.
Yeah.
Right? Because after you get past that like sort of two pizza size team,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't all eat around the same table and going out to happy hour, hosting people at your houses, all the social stuff that tends to happen
Mm-hmm.
in these spaces. And it's even harder when you're a virtual team, like when you're split. Once the screen, right? Once the sort of gallery is so big you can't see everybody, you
Mm-hmm.
can't engage everybody. You've got to reconsider your sort of your like network of trust and how that feeds your system and what does that really mean to everybody and how are those relationships being deliberately built as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
assumed to having been built because I hired you and you got
Yeah.
to know me. In the last year, I've had conversations with a couple of clients who have been with their organizations since they were very young, and they are now well over 50 people. And the folks who were there from day one, who scale with you, but as their roles get bigger and the space between you gets further, there can be a lot of uncertainty in that too, because that proximity to power that they had when you started
Mm-hmm.
is maybe no longer there or not there in the same ways.
Mm.
You're not as closely connected. And so they've built trust with you, but they've sort of, they've got bigger responsibilities or they're stretched into different ways and you're not as connected as you used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a big piece of the puzzle, is how do you consistently reinforce trust? What are the elements of trust
Mm-hmm.
that small businesses really can do as they begin to scale so that it's radiant, as opposed to something that's only held within a few people, and that same few people are making decisions and then they sort of scatter back to their teams,
Yeah.
and their teams don't get the benefit of that proximity to power. And
Yeah.
there's still that uncertainty then that sort of bleeds through the work. I don't know how that lands with you. Just,
Well, I wonder if, there isn't a moment as you grow. It doesn't even have to be a very big organization, but as you grow and that distance to power increases, if there aren't people who are left behind,
mm-hmm.
right, who no longer fit the culture of what's happening in the organization. I'm going to give you an NFL anecdote,
Okay.
right? So my Super Bowl winning team, Seattle Seahawks, thank you, 2025, um, purposefully did not pick some of the most talented position players as they were rebuilding the team. They picked people who fit the culture of the organization because they wanted the culture to be strong and not about an individual's contribution.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant that some people who had been there for a really, really long time, who were important to the sort of longevity of the team and to the city, were suddenly, it felt like, shunted off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this moment of uncomfortable, what felt like betrayal. But that wasn't actually what was happening. The team was actually trying to build something anew. And those folks, they didn't fit. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a hard conversation. I can't imagine that being an easy conversation, especially in a small business when you have people who are no longer proximate to power, who have seen you from your, two people around a pizza day,
Mm-hmm.
and you realize that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And how's that? I mean, how do you grapple with letting somebody go who no longer fits the vision for the company?
Yeah. And yeah, okay, so let's dig into that a little bit. So I I absolutely love what the Seahawks did with that. And I know for a fact it's one of the hardest things to do, is to say, you know, this, you are no longer a fit. And like saying things like culture fit is like, that's a giant landmine,
It's a
right?
coded word, right?
It
It's so
is. And
coded.
that's why I want to dig into it. I actually I want to poke at
Yeah.
that, because I think there's this misnomer that if I say culture fit, then what I'm saying is this is the culture, that this is what we ascribe to as a culture, and that one, somehow that's a bad thing,
Yeah.
and that I'm using it to exclude people, and that
Mhm.
culture fit is coded to mean if you don't look like us, talk like us, didn't come. That's
Right.
not what we mean. So let me just be
Yeah.
crystal clear. When we talk about culture, we're talking about the fabric that makes an organization function. It is the things,
Right.
again, that you practice, permit, promote. And so what I loved about that is that you can't break old models by just fixing, like, or you can't like change by just like, oh, I'm going to fix the old model. We're just going to like we'll keep fixing
Yeah.
it and fixing it. You actually have to build sometimes a new thing that makes this thing obsolete. And that's not always a
Yeah.
bad thing,
You
but
have
it
to
does
break it before
mean,
you can fix it.
right, you got to break it down, understand it, and say, you know what, these three things, it's one of the things we challenge teams to do all the time. These three things no longer serve us. We're not
Yeah.
saying these three people no longer serve us. These three things. It might
Right.
be positions, it might be ways of working, it might be alignment to an old vision, and these folks have resisted change. Then we do start talking about people and say, this is the culture, this is what we are driving toward, this is the vision. Are you aligned?
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing for me has always been this notion that employment or membership is a two-way conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I get to decide if you're the right fit for me, and you get to decide if I'm the right fit for you. And that is a two-way conversation, but it's one we tend to opt out of,
Yeah.
right? Because we either then get to play the victim,
Right.
or, we have to change. We actually have to be uncomfortable and change and shift and say, I'm not so great with that thing, but I'm really great with this thing, and I'd like to try. But
Yeah.
it's a deliberate decision. It requires work on both parts.
Yeah.
And so I do think there's an honesty
Mm-hmm.
in, and there's an activity that I've used because of this level of honesty that I think you have to have with folks, which is take all the names off the org chart and write the positions down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
get real married to whose name is in the org chart. But if you're
Yeah.
going to go through a reorg,
Yeah.
don't start with your people.
Start
Start
with
with your
function.
positions. The roles belong to the system. If your
Yeah.
system needs new roles, we're not saying it needs new people. So for all you people out there talking about AI taking your jobs and like you're going to turn, that's not what we're saying. Take all of the names off the org chart because we're all biased. If I saw Jenny's name on an org chart, which I actually have 20 years ago, been through this,
And more recently.
and more recently, right? Yeah. When I see people's names on an org chart, I'm always thinking about how do I save that person? I know what that person's capable of.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that there's a spot for that person as opposed to this is my team. These are the roles. This is my business. This is the vision.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the roles in the system that support it. Then I can say, okay, this person doesn't align to that role that feels really close to what they're doing today, but they actually might be better suited over here on this other team. Yes, it's going to be further from me, or yes, it's going to feel like a change, but let's see if that's right.
Yeah.
Right. Taking the romanticism out of it and not to be cold. You've got to know your system and you got to break it.
Yeah.
To make it new. And believe me, scaling is not just like, let's grow with all the things the way they were. Organic
$1 million
structures.
client. Yay.
Yeah.
No.
Organic structures break intentionally to grow differently. Muscle tears to get stronger.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, go ahead.
I have to challenge you on one thing that you said.
Do it.
Because I think the context is really important.
Yep.
Employment is a two-way conversation.
Yes.
However, we are not tone deaf to the fact that
nope.
The world and the system don't always work the way that we think it should, nor is it working the way that it has.
Nope.
So that may feel like a very not a very nuanced way of saying, like, I still have power and I still get to choose whether or not you work.
Yes.
And yes, you still have the opportunity to say, I don't want to work with that company, but let's recognize and acknowledge the fact that, yeah, it is a two-way conversation, but it is hard to be on the receiving end of that right now because it feels very personal, even if it's about the system.
Yeah.
Right? Because the rest of the system, you may be operating your small business in a completely fair and transparent and equitable and honest way. But the environment around you is not behaving like that. Yeah. So, it is definitely going to bring tension to a relationship that might have actually felt really healthy and really good when you have to change the components of the system in order to better grow the business. And that doesn't mean that you have to have a messy breakup. It has to be as honest as you can and as supportive as it can be.
Yeah. And I think I appreciate the challenge because, the world is a cluster.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
not of our own making, right?
Right.
All of us, right? We do our best. But yeah, I agree with you. It it is a two-way conversation, but it doesn't always feel like a two-way conversation.
No. And I'm
And
not
I have
talking
to
about like,
acknowledge that.
yeah, I'm not talking
And
about employment and the way that employment is currently structured.
right, right,
I think
right.
it's really important to when I say that, I actually almost always mean that from the perspective of putting the employee in the seat of power, not the employer.
Yes. Yes.
So when I
Yes.
say it's a
Completely
two-way
agree.
street, I want
Yeah.
folks to be examining like is this right for me? Am I
Right.
right for it? Right? Like that's because I think those when you can have those conversations from the perspective of these are the roles in the system. So as a leader or as an employer, it is your obligation to say and recognize that growth does not just look like let me add six more teams generally.
Right.
It looks like
Right.
a shift in strategy. And that's a conversation you can and should. So let's talk about the systems of trust again. You
Yeah.
can and should have with those people who have helped you build your organization and say, this is what we're seeing in the market. This is the potential, right, that we have. This is the direction we need to grow. Now, how does that impact what we've built?
Right.
Right? And you get to have that. Not that you have to, you get to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You get to appreciate the skill and the trust you've built in your system as you started the company. You only get to keep that if you are deliberate about that two-way conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you actually say, as a founder, as a leader, okay, here's we've got some hard decisions to make. And it's not about letting
Yeah.
people go, it's about the direction that we grow. And now we get
Together.
to talk about, right, together. And now we get to talk
Yeah.
about, do you still feel aligned to this?
Right.
Right? Giving
Right.
people options and giving people a chance to participate in the dialogue as opposed to making the decisions and moving people around a chessboard and then being like, here's the final picture. How do you feel?
Yay. You're lucky
Yay.
enough to have a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So,
I actually want to go back to something
yeah.
that I mentioned earlier that in our early one of our early meetings, we actually talked about what we each did well and what we really didn't
Mm-hmm.
like as part of the system. But in fact, that was actually a couple of months after I joined you
Yep.
in a sort of exploratory phase
Yep.
because we had the trust and we were able to sort of work through my issues of being long-term unemployed.
Right.
I needed time to see where I could fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to understand where you wanted to go with this organization.
Right.
And then I effectively had to design myself into what made sense
Mm-hmm.
that actually worked for me. And
Yep.
so it wasn't that you came to me and said, like, here's the job that I think you're perfect for because this is the system and this is the role that we need. You gave me time to
Mm-hmm.
really explore what does it look like, but also really clear vision and direction for
Yeah.
Rebel 75.
Yeah.
And so that I understood the boundaries of where we were going so that when it was time to have the conversation about this is what I do well and this is what I don't do well,
Mm-hmm.
I had enough exposure I had
Yeah.
enough context, I had enough understanding, I was aligned to where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
And I was able to say, I want to go there too. So there was a real intentional shift on my part to not say, I work for you,
Mm-hmm.
but I work with you.
Right.
And it's such a dumb thing. But when people would ask me, what are you doing these days? I had to stop myself and remember that I own also. And that was a very hard thing to do after 2 long bouts of unemployment. And so I think that there's also some, folks need to recognize that they may have people in their system who are struggling with all kinds of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and you can give them all the context.
Yeah.
They have to kind of come to you and come to the system in a way that works for them if they're going to make it work longer term also for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. I think we've named a few things. I just want to sort of distill it down a little bit. So I think systems of trust Like really understanding how you built trust with folks and not
Mhm.
relying on like loyalty because you hired your friend, right? Like understanding the context that that trust is given is really, really critical. So how have you built that trust? You know,
Yeah.
is it consistency and accountability, and is it directness, right? How are you building and maintaining that trust? Naming the things that you hold, right?
Mhm.
Naming what you hold in these different roles and creating that space for folks to really be able to design their own role or say, this is what I think I'm really good at. You can say, I think that you're really good at this too. Is that something you're willing to try? But having that named out loud, not being presumptive in any way about how those roles will continue to grow, especially as you scale. And then not avoiding hard conversations with your founding
Mhm.
team,
Yeah.
right? And I think some of the things we've been talking about are hard conversations, saying there's a shift in
Mhm.
vision or there's an opportunity in the market and it's going to challenge us. Those are exciting, but they are hard conversations because they require you to be honest and treat one another like colleagues, not simply like friends or people or being like making assumptions about who's going to stick around.
Yeah.
Right? So your systems of trust, inviting people in to the conversation, having hard conversations with your founding members, and then trying to be just a little bit dispassionate as you are thinking about scale so that you can then bring people back into the picture with clarity, not
Mhm.
certainty, but clarity, and allow them to make some healthy decisions. That's one of, I think, the keys to scaling successfully.
I'm going to add one
Yeah,
more little
please.
behavior that I hear. I hear a lot in small businesses, and it's kind of a beacon of like it's kind of like a lighthouse. I don't want to go near it. When I hear small business owners saying, "We are all family,"
Nope.
no, uh,
Unless you're
no,
actually family, you're not family.
you're not family. And I get why people say it, but it really blurs things when shit goes sideways
Hmm.
because I can't fire my mom, though sometimes I wish I could. I can't fire my mom. And when you call people family
Yeah.
in a business, you start to really, really make that trust and relationship connection difficult.
Yeah.
I don't work with family ever. And I love my family. And I
Hmm.
love them because I don't work with them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that I'm not hanging out with the people who I work with and it's not like, being in a college dorm. That's still different. That's not
Yeah.
family. You know that there's a boundary, there's a door I can shut, and we are separated.
Yeah.
Family is a forever thing.
Yeah.
So I'm real wary
Hmm.
when I hear that. It's homespun and it's heartfelt, but it scares me in a cultural sense because it's a loaded term.
Well, it comes
So
back to loyalty being the ceiling.
yeah,
Like, right? So,
yeah,
family, there's a lot of, forgive me, but blind loyalty and it's forever. And I can't fire my mom. I can't fire my kid.
yeah,
Right. So, there's a sense of loyalty there that you have. And I think I always feel like that's what people are trying to imply, that there's this sort of blind
yeah,
loyalty that
yeah.
exists. And it
Mm-mm.
doesn't. It really doesn't. And as soon as you imply that, I feel like it makes it hard for people to challenge the norms and to name what's broken,
Yeah,
right? I mean, to
yeah,
really truly say, hey, I get where we started, but I don't know if that's going to keep us here. We got to do
yeah,
something different. It takes a
yeah,
lot of people in families, generations to break generational cycles. That's why they talk about it that way. I'm not going to make fun of trauma informed work because it really is that for a reason. But that's
yes,
also why saying things like we're family discounts the work that has to happen in those kinds of relationships.
yeah.
So, no, I think that's a fantastic call out. So, don't
Families.
call people family. Know your systems of trust. Understand how they're built.
Yeah,
Recognize that scale is more than just adding names to the org chart. You got to actually take it apart and rebuild it, and then invite your people into that rebuild and see if you all are still aligned.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're only going to scale at the level of loyalty that you have. And when loyalty becomes the ceiling, then trust breaks real fast.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really fun. Miami, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to
Too.
meet all these folks. And I
I know.
want validation. I want to know, is that what you're seeing? What is the unspoken stuff that we don't see?
Yeah.
So I'm really super excited about visiting with folks and
Same.
hearing what kinds of stories what kinds of challenges they're facing, and because I suspect that we all share a lot of the same problems, no matter how big the organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to be in Miami, check us out. We'll be at booth 852. And we have a Thursday 12:30 talk that we're going to give all around healthy culture and rebellions.
Yeah. Rebellions. All right. See ya.
See ya.